What's up, guys? Welcome to the Jank Divers, where we dive into the janky side of Commander. I'm Isaac.
And I'm Brent. And today we're going to be taking a look at Command Storm. So this is a partner deck. Our first commander is going to be Tymna the Weaver for 1 and then a white and a black, a 2/2 human cleric with lifelink. And at the beginning of your post-combat main phase, you may pay X life, where X is the number of opponents that were dealt combat damage this turn. If you do, draw X cards. And the next partner is going to be a new card from Commander Legends, who is called Rograkh, son of Rohgahh. I don't know how to say that. It costs 0 mana, and it's a 0/1 Kobold Warrior with First Strike, Menace, and Trample. So the point of this deck is to cast our commanders as many times as possible. This is why Rograkh was chosen, as he's 0 mana, which makes him a prime target for this. The advantage is that we get to take advantage of these Commander Storm cards that care about the number of times we've cast our commander this game. So the first one's going to be Imperial Storm for 4 and double white. It's a sorcery. When you cast it, copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. And you create a 4/4 white angel, so we'll be making a lot of tokens. Then Skull Storm for 7 and double black. When you cast it, copy it for each time you played your commander. And each opponent sacrifices a creature. Each opponent who can't loses half their life rounded up. So this is our primary win condition in this deck, as we should cast our commander enough times that people will hopefully have to sacrifice all of their creatures and lose a ton of life. Then Fury Storm for 2 and double red, an instant. And this one lets you copy target instant or sorcery spell, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So we have a lot of removal spells that are good to copy. We can copy the other 2 Commander Storm cards. We can copy other people's instants and sorceries. There's a lot of targets for it.
We also have Commander's Insignia for 4 mana, is an enchantment that gives creatures you control +1/+1 for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. This is particularly strong with Rograkh, as he has a lot of keywords. It's good with Tymna too, she has lifelink. So pumping up our commanders lets us get in some commander damage. And we also have quite a lot of tokens in this deck, as we are getting into. Jarina Kudro for 4 mana is a 3/3, and when it enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 human creature token for each time you've cast a commander from the command zone this game. It also gives other humans you control +2/+0. Tymna is a human, so she gets the +2/+0 from this, and hopefully we'll be getting a ton of creatures for only 4 mana. We also have some other token payoffs, as we'll see later on in the video. Opal Palace, it can tap for 1 colorless mana, or you can pay 1 mana and tap it to add to your mana pool 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. And then if you spend this mana to cast your commander, it enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+1 counters on it, equal to the number of times it's been cast from the command zone this game. So again, this is helpful if we are trying to transition into a Voltron plan, where we're trying to kill our opponents with commander damage. Since we are already casting our commander, both of our commanders, many times in one game, having it enter the battlefield with 6 or 7 +1/+1 counters on it really speeds up the clock for your opponent, and is really good with all the keywords on our commanders.
So next up, we have some more casting our commander payoffs. First up is another new card, Flamekin Herald, for 2 and a red, a 3/2 elemental wizard, and commander spells you cast have Cascade. So with Rograkh, the 0 mana one, all this does is shuffle our library and find nothing. So I guess you can show off your deck to your opponents if you want to. But for the more relevant one, Tymna, pretty much everything that costs 2 or less in our deck is always going to be good to hit. So this just added value basically says draw a card every time, but a little bit better because we get to cast it for free. Very useful when casting Tymna. Skyfire Phoenix for 2 and double red, a 3/3 with flying and haste, and when you cast your commander, return Skyfire Phoenix from your graveyard to the battlefield. This card becomes more relevant when you'll see in a moment, but it's very good just in general. Tome of Legends for 2 mana, an artifact. It enters with a page counter on it, and whenever your commander enters the battlefield or attacks, put a page counter on Tome of Legends. Obviously, when we have 2 commanders that are both really cheap to cast, we're going to add a lot of page counters. And then you can pay 1 and tap to remove a page counter from Tome of Legends to draw a card.
Since our plan is already to cast our commander a bunch of times, we wanted to include some cards that just rewarded us for casting creatures, since a lot of times trying to pay like 8 or 10 mana for a 0/1 isn't the best plan. It softens the blow when it comes with other bonuses as well. So God Eternal Aketra for 5 mana is a 3/6 with double strike. So any of our cards that pump up our creatures is going to be twice as effective on him. And when you cast a creature spell, you get to create a 4/4 black zombie warrior creature token with vigilance. And when he dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library, third from the top. So makes it really resilient to removal, as you'll just draw it again in a couple draws. And whenever you're casting your commander or any of your other creatures, you just get to create a massive token every time. Aketra's Monument for 3 mana. White creatures spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. So this actually isn't helping us reduce a lot of costs of most of our creatures in our deck, but it is helping us with Tymna. But the main reason we're playing it is whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 white warrior creature token with vigilance. So again, our main plan of the deck is to be casting creatures as many times as possible. Getting a little bit of extra value is just going to be very beneficial to us.
Next up, we have some graveyard payoffs. First up will be Tormod the Desecrator for 3 and a black. He's a 4/2. He has partner, but that doesn't matter. Whenever 1 or more cards leave your graveyard, create a 2/2 black tapped zombie creature token. And then Desecrated Tomb for 3 mana. Whenever 1 or more creature cards leave your graveyard, create a 1/1 black bat creature token with flying. You'll see in a moment we have a lot of ways to leverage this effect. The main one is that if you sacrifice a commander, it does technically hit your graveyard before you choose to put it back into the command zone. So every time we sacrifice one of our commanders, which we'll be doing quite a bit so that we can recast them, we're going to be making a free token. This also works really well with the Skyfire Phoenix, for example, and some more cards you'll see in a moment.
So we need a lot of non-token creatures to sacrifice, so it seemed natural to fit in some of these cards that just keep coming back as many times as you need them. Squee Goblin Nabob, one of my personal favorite cards. For 3 mana is a 1/1 goblin. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may return Squee Goblin Nabob from your graveyard to your hand. So this just lets you cast it. You're getting a Ketra and a Ketra Monument value off of casting your Squee again, and you're also getting Tormod and Desecrated Tomb value from creatures leaving your graveyard. Squee the Immortal accomplishes the same things. For 3 mana is a 2/1. You may cast Squee the Immortal from your graveyard or from exile. So this just makes it pretty much impossible to stop you from getting the value from, as you can just keep casting it, getting the value, and keep using it as a sacrifice fodder. Bloodghast for 2 mana is a 2/1. It can't block, and it has haste as long as an opponent has 10 or less life. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may return Bloodghast from your graveyard to the battlefield. Again, this just is an excellent sacrifice fodder card, as whenever you play a land, you get it back. Chances are you're going to be hitting your land drop almost every turn, just with all of our card draw and stuff. Having just another creature to sacrifice every turn is going to help, along with our ramp package, which we are about to get into.
So our payoff for having all of our creatures die so often is going to be cards that give us mana when our creatures die. So Pitiless Plunderer for 3 and a black, a 1/4 human pirate, and whenever another creature you control dies, you make a treasure token, which lets you tap it and sacrifice this artifact to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. This card is exceptionally powerful with the 2 cards we're about to talk about, which are Pawn of Ulamog and Sifter of Skulls. So Pawn of Ulamog for 1 and double black, it's a 2/2 vampire shaman, and whenever it or another non-token creature you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may put a 0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature token onto the battlefield. It has sacrificed this creature, add 1 colorless to your mana pool. This is really good with our commander Rograkh, as since he costs 0, he does not need colored mana to be cast. So cards like Pawn of Ulamog, which can create large amounts of colorless mana, are going to allow us to cast our commander as many times as we need to. Sifter of Skulls for 3 and a black is a 4/3 Eldrazi. It has Devoid, which means it has no color, but that's irrelevant for our purposes. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, make a 1/1 colorless Eldrazi Scion token, which has the same ability to sacrifice for colorless. These two cards are exceptionally powerful with Pitiless Plunderer, as whenever we sacrifice an Eldrazi creature for mana, we'll create a treasure token as well, letting them add 2 mana, which can get out of hand extremely quickly.
We also have some sacrifice outlets that help with our mana ramp as well. So Priest of Forgotten Gods is probably one of our better ones. For 2 mana is a 1/2 human cleric, and you can tap it, sacrifice 2 other creatures, and any number of target players each lose 2 life and sacrifice a creature. Then you add 2 black mana to your mana pool and draw a card. So this is probably one of the most Chad sack outlets in the whole game, as it just has like an entire wall of text after the sacrifice 2 other creatures. It just does it all. Mana ramp, card draw, some pinging, and removal. Ashnod's Altar for 3 mana is sacrifice a creature. You add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. In a token deck, this is one of the most powerful ways to ramp in the whole game. You'll see a lot of combo decks built around Ashnod's Altar. We are not a combo deck, but we are a token deck, so we're just using this for good fair ramp to try to cast our commander as many times as possible. Phyrexian Tower is a legendary land, and you can tap it to add a colorless mana to your mana pool, or you can tap it and sacrifice a creature to add 2 black mana to your mana pool. Having a land that taps for 2 black mana is super useful.
So next up, we have some more sack outlets that are also reanimation spells, as since we're going to be sacrificing a lot of non-token creatures, being able to get them back is going to be useful for us. So Whisper Blood Liturgist is a 3 and a black for 2/2 human cleric. You can tap it, sacrifice 2 creatures, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is very powerful, as not only is it a sack outlet, it's repeatable reanimation, so we can get back things we sacrificed as many times as we need to. Victimized for 2 and a black, choose 2 target creature cards in your graveyard, then sacrifice a creature. If you do, return the chosen cards to the battlefield tapped. This is very good, as we can get back 2 creatures instead of 1, and it's also a sack outlet, and it costs 3. So not only is it undercosted, we get back double the amount of creatures we normally would from a card like this. Then finally is Dread Return for 2 and double black, sorcery, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it also has flashback to sacrifice 3 creatures. It's a decent reanimation spell up front, but then after we cast it, we can cast it again for free, which is insane. And the only cost being you have to sacrifice 3 creatures is effectively nothing with the amount of tokens we're able to make, and is even an advantage most of the time as we want to sacrifice things.
We also included some bigger token makers. They are really powerful with our reanimation targets. Angel of Invention for 5 mana is a 2/1 with Flying, Vigilance, and Lifelink. And it has Fabricate 2, which means when it enters the battlefield, you get to either pick 2 +1/+1 counters or 2 1/1 servo artifact creature tokens. And it also gives other creatures you control +1/+1. So this works as an anthem for our tokens. If we're just trying to beat down naturally, it can just be a pretty good life gain payoff if we're just trying to catch up from playing behind. Grave Titan for 6 mana is a 6/6 with Death Touch. And when it enters the battlefield or attacks, we get 2 2/2 zombies on our battlefield under our control. So even if this gets killed, we're just reanimating it and creating a massive amount of zombies. Probably one of my favorite of the Titan cycles, just because tokens are always fun. Emrakul's Hatcher, for 5 mana, is a 3/3, and when it enters a battlefield, you get to put 3/0/1 colorless Eldrazi spawn creature tokens onto the battlefield. And again, they have that ability where you can sacrifice them to add 1 mana to your mana pool. If we just need things to sacrifice for our other cards, you can use those tokens for that. Or this lets you ramp pretty hard, and it triggers our Pitiless Plunderer as well. Getting a 6 mana from 5 mana can be quite powerful.
So next up we have some more sack outlets and things that benefit off stuff dying. So first up will be Black Market for 3 and double black, an enchantment. Whenever a creature dies, you put a charge counter on Black Market, and at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, add 1 black to your mana pool for each charge counter on Black Market. This is really good because the charge counters obviously stay forever, so whenever any of our creatures die, that's just another mana we can add to our bank. And over the course of a game, you could probably get this up to like 10 if no one destroys it, or even higher, so you can add a lot of mana that way. Also, if you have Black Market out before you sacrifice your commander, it will effectively cut all future commander attacks in half, as you'll get to save 1 mana per each time you sacrifice your commander. So next is going to be a new card from Commander Legends, Tevish Sazat, Doom of Fools, a 4 and a black for a Planeswalker with 4 loyalty. It can technically be your commander, and technically it has partner, but we're just running it in the 99. It has +2, create 2/0/1 black Thrall creature tokens. So obviously you've seen that we like having tokens in this deck. Then +1, you may sacrifice another creature or Planeswalker. If you do, draw 2 cards. Then draw another card if the sacrifice permanent was a commander. We like sacrificing our commander, so this is useful to us. We'll draw 3 cards a lot of times. But even just drawing 2 cards is really good. Then finally, for the -10, we probably won't ever hit this, but if you do, it's pretty funny. Gain control of all commanders. Put all commanders from the command zone onto the battlefield under your control. So not only do you steal everybody else's commanders, which is just really good, you can also get your own commander back out if it's too expensive somehow, but I don't think that's ever going to happen, but it could, so I thought I'd mention it. Skull Clamp, 1 colorless and artifact equipment. Equip creature gets +1/-1, and when it dies, draw 2 cards, equip 1. Very good with all of our Thrall tokens and Eldrazi tokens and human tokens, you know. We have a lot of tokens, so we also have Rograkh having 1 toughness, means he dies to Skull Clamp, so we can draw a lot of cards off killing our commander repeatedly.
We also had some other cards that just accidentally helped us with Voltron plan. So we went ahead and included some cards that we thought would be really helpful for just having that as a backup plan. Mace of the Valiant, for 3 mana, equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each charge counter on Mace of the Valiant, and has Vigilance. And whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to put a charge counter on Mace of the Valiant. So since we are a token deck, a lot of creatures will be entering the battlefield under our control whenever we cast our commander. This is going to give us more charge counters, so eventually Mace of the Valiant will just be giving the equipped creature a ridiculous amount of stats. So all we have to do is get to 21 damage with either of our commanders to get somebody dead. And you don't get to see Mace of the Valiant in very many decks, so we decided to include it mostly because we think it's neat. Lightning Greaves is pretty staple if you're trying to go on a Voltron plan, and it helps protect some of our other great cards, and it gives them haste. Like Whisper has a tap ability, so being able to play Whisper and activate it on the same turn while also protecting it is pretty good. Or if we have one of our commanders really gassed up to try to go for the Voltron win, then we can just slap on the Lightning Greaves and give it Shroud. It's a pretty Voltron staple. So we went ahead and decided to include it.
That's going to be it for Commander Storm. If you think you can guess the art of the card in the background, feel free to leave it in your comments. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it and subscribe if you'd like to see more. And thanks for watching.